Hi, and welcome to our Sitting Room Sessions episode 2, our second attempt. Thankfully, less of a technological faux pas this time. General notices, which we picked up from feedback from the last time. The session is recorded. We do use adult teams, including adult language. And we try very, very hard not to misgender people with our language or use overly gendered language where possible. We don't always get it right, but it's important that we kind of work towards that, is our sessions and our endeavour.
And if anybody wants to put the preferred pronouns in the chat, please feel free.
Yeah.
Or you can set your profile to record your to show your preferred pronouns.
Yeah.
If you want.
So I know it's possible to alter your kind of Zoom name and put he, she, they, them, whichever it is comfortable for yourselves, and we'll endeavour where possible to meet that requirement. So what we'd like to do as we start off our sessions is to set the space, pour a drink for our deities of preference, or our boss and boss, as the case may be. Well, I ramble words. I don't want to say people are beholden to or contracted to, but
totally contracted.
Absolutely, totally contracted to him too. So with that in mind, I'm going to reach below our little table and pull out some beverages, and I'm going to pour for him. So it's the green spot again for him today. So gift from my community. But funny enough, I went looking for a glass and I got the jam jar glass, because I was like, no, I'll get you the fancy glass. It's like, that's fancy enough. So this is his jam jar glass. And this is Patreon whiskey. This is the support of the people, support of the community, and a gift for the gods. On Dagda, let's launch it. Loud, noisy. Okay.
Rated whiskey is best whiskey.
Yeah, we found that happens on occasion. She prefers to raid whatever she can get her access to, which is very, very entertaining. And so, rated whiskey. she can take what she wants to take. That's how it rolls. Especially with our love and affection for the Morrigan in this household. That's not enough. We can get more. Or we will get more.
To finish.
Well, she's good at that.
Finishing?
Ending. All right, and with that, I'm going to open my beverage. So it's 9 p.m. of the evening here, and we are adult individuals enjoying adult beverages.
On our own in the house for once. Our son is away and we've no visitors or guests or anything.
It's been joyful. It's been like delightfully, pleasantly quiet here in our home, in a good way, in a good productive way. Lora has spent a large amount of effort kind of rolling out her new program of meditations and meditation practice to make it much more accessible and easier. So she has spent a lot of time doing that today, whereas I have spent the day filling my brain with more stories and different kinds of stories, and generally taking care of the mundane, run-of-the-mill laundry jobs and all the rest of it in the house. So, yeah, this is our process and cycles, and that is a lot of beverage.
What's everyone else out today?
Let's launch at a store.
Did we look up whether we had a conversation? Who were we talking to?
Noises.
About the pinky finger.
Oh, we were talking to
Richard? No.
Brianna.
Friend
of ours, Brianna. I did try and do some investigative works about that, but I didn't get very, very far with it.
You better explain
it. Well,
those adult themes that we warned you about. Incoming!
Welcome to the deep end, 2 feet straight in. We tend to, thankfully, gratefully, have some nice, awesome friends who like to road trip with us, so like to come over and share our space. And one of the most recent was our friend Brianna. and we went for a road trip out for one of Laura's site visits from her Patreon. So we popped over, got a coffee after a long drive before we went slogging down into a field to find it was a court cairn this time?
Yeah,
Court tomb down in Waterford. So it was really, really great. But we're there kind of enjoying this lovely fancy little coffee served in kind of glass mugs. And of course, the pinky comes out and you're like, sipping from your glass cup of coffee with pinky out. And me being a person of anecdotal references, I heard someplace that the erect pinky whilst sipping or drinking was indicative of a number of different things. And I decided to regale Laura and Brianna with the story, which was met with outright skepticism, justifiably, because I couldn't cite my sources. So my understanding, what I heard was an outstretched pinky in polite company whilst you're sipping your beverage was indicative of a willingness to engage in, adult, frivolous, intimate or romantic circumstances of a casual physical nature, but also the fact that your pinky was able to be fully erect and not kind of hooked over was the stage that you didn't in fact have. I think it was first or second stage syphilis, which apparently affected joints, which is an STT. So as a way of being able to engage or to communicate with other people who are in a certain kind of understanding of things, that's what I heard. So if anyone knows the same or knows different, I don't know, let us know. But we haven't as yet found cited sources for that. It's one of those kind of colloquial terms that passes along. So it kind of is a bit of an interesting segue to what we kind of wanted to talk about, which is...
Not sure it's a segue.
Well, no, it's about how information is passed along. It's about how the story carries and how one story carries to the next story, how to continue on the story, how this kind of oral kind of stuff passes along, and then the importance of that in a specifically Irish tradition. So
we're talking about the lore, just
yes,
cut to the chase.
We wanted to kind of have a quick chat about how important the lore is and how folklore of any nation, of any country, of any people is so important to that people. And, of course, the only way lens that we can really have a look at this through the Irish lens, because, this is what we grew up in and what our experiences is. But my thought process is on that, in any country, in any kind of nation or like collection of people, even down to a small localized community level, it's the passing on of the stories, it's the passing on of the lore that helps teach you around those additional areas. Like, there's rote learning, school learning, kind of structured education, hugely important. And personal belief is that everyone should have access to that as readily as possible, because as a species, that's the only way we're going to go forward. But there's stuff that can't really be taught in books. There's stuff that you can't really pass along unless it's with that oral kind of transfer, unless it's with that interconnectedness. And the medium for that is often folklore, is often that kind of tale and the stories and like stuff you hear from your granny, from their granny, information passed down the way. And, it may be frivolous flights of fancy, it may be just story, but I grew up Saturday morning cartoons, and at the end of any He-Man or She-Ra episode, there's always, and the moral of today's story was, and that to me is like always been very important. Like, a friend of mine will always credit He-Man for teaching him how to lift with his legs, not with his back. But it's something simple like that. Like, but to transfer the story by telling people to, oh well, you don't want to go out on a dark night when there's no moon to see by, because that's when the she ride the hardest. Absolutely, it might be kind of spiritual, otherworldly forces, but it might also be common fucking sense. So the impact and the importance of lore to people is where we want to kind of touch on today, because it's something that we do talk about a lot and have strong feelings about, particularly if you want to disempower people, if you want to kind of conquer them or oppress them, as some nations have been by other nations. What you really want to do is take away their identity, take away their knowledge, take away anything that empowers them through their education, through their practices, or their lore. And that is what has happened in Ireland throughout our ancient past. And I think that is something that, still resonates to a lot of different people, and in other countries as well. If you kind of take away people's connection to their ancient wisdom, to those stories, to what's passed down, what identifies them as people, then you're able to dehumanize them, and you're able to conquer them, you're able to break them.
It's really tied up with the language as well. So, taking away their language, like in Irish, for example, our ways of expressing things are very different from in English. So even our sentence structure and how we, in the classic one we always talk about is the way our emotions are upon us, or our feelings are upon us. So Tá Brón Orm is literally the sadness is upon me. And that's a really important distinction between I am sad, It's a way of connecting and a way of expressing it that speaks to something very deeply inside me that I just don't get with English. And I'm not fluent enough in Irish to do it, and therein lies the rub, we haven't got that language. And even though there has been a big push to bring it back, and it's mandatory to learn in schools and all the rest of it, the way it's taught, there's no soul in it, ironically enough. And it's taught grammatically, it's taught rigidly, or it was anyway when we were at school. It might be changing slightly, I'm not sure, but more towards conversational Irish. But really, the only way that anybody gets any kind of raw or love or passion for Irish is by going and spending time at the Gaeltacht. And unfortunately, that's a problem as well, because that's generally the middle to upper class could afford to go and spend time in the Gaeltacht regions. The Gaeltacht regions of Ireland are Irish-speaking regions, so they're parts within counties. There's a couple of them around the country. There wouldn't even be full counties of them.
No.
They're just areas.
Localized communities.
Yeah. So there are Irish colleges that you can go and spend time in over the summer or whatever when you're in school or a teenager, and as an adult as well, I think.
Yeah.
But you need the money to go and do that. So
it's problematic, and it's a challenge. As I said, that's part of those kind of localized small communities where Irish is predominantly spoken. And it is a living language there, and there's a lot of support for that from a national perspective, because it was something that was taken away from us. It was illegal to speak Irish under the Queen's rule when a long time ago. Thankfully, we've come a long way since then. But a lot of the roots and a lot of the habits of it have been kind of damaged. Now we're trying to grow it back, and the Celtic revivalism is what is that? The Gaelic revivalism. It was post 1916, actually on the run up to and post across that entire period.
It actually started in the 1800s, really. Even the late 1700s, there was snips of it. There was the rising in 1798. It was actually carried on the back of a lot of that.
Right.
The nationalism. So all through the 1800s. There's kind of, when Yeats and Maud Gonne and all those got involved in it, it was late 1800s, and then that flowed in then to the rising, and that's the most publicized.
Yeah.
That's when the theatre started. That's when there was a huge crossover between art and nationalism, I suppose. And the art was very much an expression for our Irish spirit, which had been lost or lacking before that.
It was a big one, all right, and it was very, very important in a lot of ways to make sure that we could re-establish some of how and what we are. It's as I mentioned, the way to kind of oppress the people is to remove parts of their identity, and that was done by defying language. But being able to kind of go back to some kind of sources to rebuild that. We're very fortunate in that there was a lot of recorded documents, and some of the oldest kind of folklore stories, which is what I kind of study for my works and the stories I produce, were written down by early Christian scholars. So there was a connection to the language at that point. But being able to kind of go from documented language and to kind of return it to a living kind of speaking environment means that anyone who was kind of doing the work on this had to go to those remote areas, go to those areas that were the holdouts, were the rebellious people who carried on speaking the language despite what they were being told that they had to do to change. So there was still enough to kind of bring forth, but it's very interesting how even in a small island that you can drive across in a matter of hours, you'll find multiple different dialects and multiple different pronunciations of the Irish language. So it's great to be able to kind of bring that back. And my nieces are in school at the moment in a Gael school. So there is a primary or first level education, which is completely Irish speaking. And,
within certain schools.
So again, there's a lot of restrictions to get access to that in a lot of ways. But being able to kind of at an early age kind of expose children to the language and kind of help them go forward.
The only real restriction is geographical, and that you obviously have to be close to one.
Well, it's a little more than that because this was one thing that I was pleasantly surprised about. The appetite to have children go to a Gael school was very, very high. So geographical comes into it, but then there's also a lot of other considerations given the restricted number of spaces that they have. So for my sister particularly, it was a great win to get Katie, their first daughter, into school in a Gael school, because one of the factors and one of the features that the school takes on is, has any of the other family members been in the school? So like getting Katie in the door meant that, the other two, Anya and Clodagh, have a much stronger position going in to get that at school. So the fact that the school had to turn away a lot of people because they couldn't fill is sad, but it showed that it wasn't just a case of, we'll take anyone who wants, because there were people queuing a year in advance to try and get their children into an all-Irish speaking school.
Okay, so some of that is normal for Dublin, though, as well, in fairness.
It is, but when you have a preference for an Irish school as opposed to any other, it's good to see. So, language.
Does anybody have any questions on the lore? If you want to throw them in the chat, or if you want to have a hand up, or say
Helen, there's a few of us here, and like last time, as I said, it was 2 hours of me just talking. Hopefully, it wasn't all that bad. I'm going to get myself nerfed any minute now, I swear. But if you guys want to engage as well, it's about a chat session. It's not about a class session. So throw something down into the messages. If you'd like to kind of have an opinion or share an opinion, because I'd be delighted. And that's how, particularly what this is all about for me, the oral exchange, because that's how our origin stories were transferred, or orally. There's an entire kind of segment of culture, like the bards and the druids and the Fila, who were specifically about the transfer of knowledge by, oral kind of performance. And that's how people kind of recorded history. That's how, people learned their lessons. And, that's how even judgments were arbitrated based on, I know the story of this other time with that fence and that cow and that thing. So if I tell you that story, then we'll know how to manage this new incident because it's much like it. So for me, engaging in these kind of story exchanges is important, and it's a pleasure. So plus I could talk for hours, and I don't know if I want to hear myself talk for ages. So maybe, Laura, if I kind of put a question to yourself, in regards to, you mentioned earlier on about how the language helps you with your own processes, like the mention of emotions being on you, and you're therefore able to define yourself separate to the emotion because it's only upon you, it's not you. As someone who has studied psychology, what do you think the import of that from a language structure is to the human condition?
I think it's easier to share. It's easier to share if you have a feeling on you. There's a temporary nature to it, as you said. It's not yours. Well, it might be yours for now, but it's not you. And that's a really, really big difference. the Irish are so community focused, and it's everything from the small family communities to an extended family to the much wider, your neighborhood, your town, your county. It's ever expanding circles of just communities. Basically, that's how we work. We're tribal. We're still tribal. We're still very tribal, and a large part of community building obviously is communication, and the communication then is easier around emotions. I think that there's a lot of stunting of with men and with women, but maybe less so with women, of being able to talk about your emotions, being able to talk about your feelings. And I have to wonder, was it easier in the native Irish? Was it easier to express that? Because psychologically that makes sense, that you can talk about a thing that's happening to you or that's upon you without it being you. So if you're depressed, if you're sad, if whatever the emotion is, if you're afraid, like Ta'agla Urim is the fear is on me, the fear is upon me. And being able to say that, that it's a thing that kind of washes on you and then washes off, and I am afraid has a very different impact, I think. And it's almost like an expression of weakness, or a fault, that you're saying that there's something wrong with you, or that there's something gone wrong, that you have become afraid. Where with the Irish, it's just, like I said, it's wash on, wash off, and it's not a part of you, it's not a part of your personality, it's not a part of your nature, and it's something that you can maybe share a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of things on that as well. It's the fact that it defines the emotive state or the condition as temporary. So anything and everything is a temporary condition that can be rectified and solved. Like another kind of like piece of the language as is, like you mentioned, Ta Broner, the sadness is upon me. Ta Agla, or the fear is upon me. But one of my personal favorites, maybe because I'm a Dagda guy, is Ta Ukras, or the hunger is upon me. And like from a language construct and from this temporary status, if you can make a corollary, make a comparison between these two sentences, the fear and the sadness are comparable because they are upon you. They're not like, they aren't you, they're just upon you. But the hunger is also on you, and much that you can resolve hunger by just having food, it's an easy solve. So, the language then, from a comparative nature, if you can just resolve hunger by having food, the hunger's on me, great. The hunger's no longer on me because I ate something. So the fear is on me. Well, maybe I can get the fear off me by facing it, by challenging it, or by talking about it. The sadness is on me. Again, it's the same. It's a temporary status that can be resolved by a small, moderate change. So it's very, very interesting how that element of the language, I think, really can help the human condition, can help like the psychology behind it, and can understand where you're coming from with yourself, because you're not defining yourself by a particular thing. You're acknowledging a temporary state of being. So I think Helen has kind of just popped up. Hi, Helen. Thank you very much. Thing is, you're both bloody interesting, so it's great to hear you both speak. It's hard for me to speak about this stuff as an English person, but I really value your perspectives. Love this whole thread of thought, by the way. Language is so painfully fundamental. Absolutely, Helen. And I had the pleasure of your company before, and we've had chats in real life when you're over for the tour that time, and your nationality is just part of what you are. Like, you never caused any harm to me or my country. Your parents never caused any harm to me or my country. And like it's a matter of acknowledging a state of history, but I don't personally hold it against anyone who is of that nationality. I can turn around and say, well, we had the 800 years of oppression and difficult times and all the rest of it. but I have family who are English. You know, one of my cousins is living in London at the moment, and he's second generation of that, and I don't bear him any ill will. You know, one of my best friends is from Luton, just outside of London, and you know, I have many friends all over the UK, and I don't begrudge them anything. I don't kind of allow what is kind of Irish trauma, or like, you know, passed down Irish trauma, to colour how I view people today. You know, I acknowledge what has come in the past, and I acknowledge personally for me how it forms some of my thinking, how it forms my tendency towards nationalism, how it forms my understanding or approach towards my country, to like what I believe is my land or my people, but not in an adversarial way. And I think that's probably a core of like healthy mindset, which maybe comes from my understanding of the Irish language. I can acknowledge the Tafaraga Urim, that the anger is upon me. But much like Ukris, much like Brown, it's a transient state, it's temporary. You know, and by acknowledging that it's temporary, by looking to that within myself, I can go below that. I can figure out what it is that's caused it, and I can then allow it and understand that it doesn't define me. It doesn't have to define my actions, my thought process, my relationship with other people. I can just address what has caused that within that incident, and then allow it to no longer be upon me. And so I would love to hear your opinion. Absolutely. You know, have you had any difficulties from Irish people? You know, and you know, how has that made you feel? Or like, you know, I'd hate to feel that anything that I would say or that we would share would cause I don't know what post-colonial guilt in some way on people.
I would like to get a word in edgewise, please.
Sorry.
We need to talk and stare or something.
We do. We need to like flash a button in my eyes. Helen, we like you. Thank you very much for being part of our group, and thank you very much for turning up. And every opinion is valid. Every opinion is valid. I'm just dressing that thing. Okay, you go. Sitting up. Shit, drink, and I'll have to drink.
Okay, so as John has so eloquently pointed out, I think maybe putting it in the context of, you know, you can hate men, or you can hate white people, or, you know, you can hate the behavior, but you're not talking about like not all men, you know, not all white people, not all English people. It's not that every English person is perfect, because there is, and I think this is a really important point with English and Americans and South Africans and anybody who actually does come from colonial ancestry. It's really important to be aware of that, as I know you are, Helen, personally, and I know a lot of our American friends and our English friends are definitely. But no more than racism is very embedded in all of us who are raised white. It's the society that we grew up in. Misogyny, male privilege definitely is very embedded in people who, you know, were socialized as men. And those things, even though we can unpick them, and we can pull off the layers and try and rebuild in a better way, they're like nettles, you know, there's these little weeds that come out every so often, and, you know, you think you've got it all up, and then all of a sudden there's a runner or a root coming up somewhere. And it is really important for all of us who are, or have been, or our ancestors have been in those privileged positions, to not have guilt over it, but definitely have awareness over it, you know. And honestly, I think it's no harm, you know, like if two Irish people are talking about colonialism, yes, as an English person, or, you know, an American person with colonial ancestors, yes, it is a good idea to, you know, step back and have a little listen and have a little think, and try and kind of root up some of those nettles that grow, you know. No more than if, you know, I'm sitting in a room with people of colour, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to listen to what they're saying. I'm going to listen to their experiences, and I'm going to try and integrate that and make sure that, now, I'm not comparing the two things, but just, you know,
yeah,
not like for like, but there are certain issues that the Irish have had with colonialism that do have similarities with the oppression of brown and black people as well. Similarities. Again, the Irish were not slaves. I know you all know this, but I can never not say it. Okay?
Yeah.
Indentured servitude is very different to slavery.
Yeah.
So,
you're not property.
There are differences like that. But again, there are similarities, and I have had conversations with friends who come from those heritages and come from those backgrounds where there's a common ground or there's a common experience. Being in Tanzania actually this time last year was a real eye-opener, staying with Dorcas, and they were British colonized as well. And honestly, there's more similarities than there are differences, so and like by the end of it, Dorcas reckoned that the Irish actually had a worse time than Tanzania had. I was like, yeah, maybe I've biased you a little bit on that. Let's call it quits, okay? It's not a competition there, Dorcas.
Yeah, we don't need to compare traumas. Yeah. Ellen did respond to us as well. She said she is actually aware of it and doesn't want to come across it. So we really appreciate Ellen. And most awesomely, hasn't had any difficulties with Irish people, which I'm delighted to hear at all.
Irish are great, sure.
We're welcome anywhere. Twice, the second time to apologise. But she was also brought up by an awesome woman who made it clear to be respectful of history. So, props.
Yeah, that's good. Like a lot of English people don't know the history either. Like I'll never. I was very young and I was speaking at a conference in Manchester called the Awakenings, which was kind of a ritual magic. Yeah, I think it was like OTO or a lot of OTO people anyway. And I was invited over to talk on Irish traditions. And there's a fantastic bookshop, actually, Pagan bookshop in Manchester. This is in England. So went over, and I'm not even joking, I had 5 people come up to me after that talk, or through the evening, and tell me that they genuinely were not aware that the Irish had our own language, and like those are very close neighbors. Working in tourism, I got it a lot from American people, and I, like that's much further away, and I'd maybe expect that, but given the proximity of the English and their hand in, historically speaking, their hand in the wiping out of our language, or the attempted wiping out of our language, that irked me a little bit, I have to say. So I would love to see more English people talking about Irish history and talking about the reality of the Irish experience, and having that awareness around it.
Yeah.
The Waterford Whispers article the other day. Sorry, this is a joke at Brexit's expense, and it's like the plan is to put Irish history on the side of a big bus so that the English actually learn it and integrate it. But that's what happened with Brexit.
It's hilarious. But I think you've touched on something which kind of loops back to our main theme again. It's education and the importance of lore, and how that can be used very positively to preserve a culture, preserve a language, but how also it can be used to, skew the story, skew the history, and how that really can have an important effect on a culture, on a nation, on the mindset of a nation. And to touch on the Brexit part, when there was the difficulties over, the question of a hard border in Northern Ireland, and there was kind of a lot of media coverage, and kind of Irish media was kind of asking a lot of questions, and they went out to the streets over, I think it was in London, and they were asking people, they held up an outline of Ireland. You probably saw this, an outline of the island of Ireland, and it's like, okay, can you just draw a line anywhere on, for the north, what part is Northern Ireland? And it was ridiculous. People drawing a line halfway through the island. People drawing sure, isn't that all this entire section here? And it was everything from more than 25% of the island or not. And then they started asking people opinion, what do you think of Ireland's position on the kind of hard border and the troubles and like the north of our country. No, sorry, north of our island, not our country, separate country. And I just, one particular comment, there was an elderly lady, maybe from a particular generation, and her response was, well, surely they lost and they should just get over it. And so it was like, lost what? So it was very, very interesting how the education of the language can change the perceptions of everything from nations to history to culture to privilege. If people aren't actually talking about people of color, if they aren't aware or addressing their own internal concerns or biases towards that, then how as a collective do we move forward? So it's very, very interesting that we have had a couple of responses on the messages, which I do want to connect to.
Yeah.
You want to continue?
Just to finish that, there is. Oh, I've lost it. No, took too long. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I have another point, but carry on with comments.
That's what we do when we're talking. We kind of cross our fingers. This is to remind us that we have to do this thing to come back to the conversation. So if you ever see either of us in a conversation waiting with our fingers crossed, it means that we have a thought. And then if you see us look perplexed and uncross our fingers, it means that we've gone and forgotten.
Lost it.
It's all lost. It's all lost.
So I have another one, but I lost it in the business.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I remembered. Sorry. Sorry. You touched on it there, entitlement, and that's just to kind of finish the point that I was making about those seeds and roots that are still in us from those who have colonial ancestry and colonial heritage. There is a sense of entitlement that has been passed on, and that's really one to watch. And that's really coming up strongly with the Brexit, with the border, where it's like, why don't the Irish just toe the line? Why don't they just get with the program?
Should we conquer them? Maybe if we just leave, then surely Ireland's going to leave as well. Right?
So I've got that time and time and time again where it is that sense of entitlement and arrogance, and feeling like, well, it's our way, so obviously that's the right way, or that's the best way, or that's the way it is. So.
Yeah. So just to look back, Helen did respond, and it was her mum who was awesome. Here's a really interesting thing from a psychological point of view. Taught me that our first thoughts are a reflection of our culture, and our second thoughts are our authentic selves that we decide to be. So, your initial reaction, obviously, to something, correct me if I got it right or wrong, your initial response would be a reflection of the culture and the society in which you've been raised in, conditioning that's been provided. Whereas the second thoughts, when you have a moment to think about it, you go beyond that knee-jerk reaction, you go beyond that initial cultured response to, well, no, what's the real depth of it? I actually love that. It's funny enough, it's one of my favorite series of books, which is a gift from my darling beloved, Terry Pratchett, awesome author. He wrote a series based on the witches towards the latter end, and Tiffany Aching. And they talk very significantly about Tiffany and the fact that she's proper witch stuff because she has first sight and second thoughts. So not the second sight to see stuff that isn't there, the first sight to see what actually is there, but crucially the second thought. So a second set of thoughts which question the first set of thoughts and which make sure that the rationale is there and the reasons there. So I actually think that's fantastic, and it's a really, really good one to have there, Helen. So props to your mammy for that as well. Pam responded, "I'm so determined to learn the language. Love how it can convey every emotion perfectly. The more I learn, the more I feel like I can understand the Irish people today, and the Irish people of long ago. Feel it's so important to learn if you're interested in the Irish spirituality thing. Also enjoy hearing you two sort out and discuss these complex subjects." Thank you very much, Pam. We're a big fan of yourself as well. We're delighted. You come up in conversation on occasion. We were like, "Oh yeah, that was Pam." She's like, "Sent out an email. You know who wrote first? Pam." Which is why, when you subscribe to my mailing list, I was like, who's a patron of mine, Pam. And I was like, so we thank you very much, Pam. We really, really appreciate that. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for how the language kind of forms the thought process, as we've kind of touched on already.
There's a term for that, actually. It's linguistic. I want to say relativism, but I think that's wrong. But it's basically that the language shapes your thoughts. What is the term for that? I've lost it. But anyway, that's it. Where, you know, the language fucking matters.
Yeah.
You know, like language fucking matters. It really does. And like even that, actually, the cursing.
Yeah.
The Irish have gone from guilt. The Irish have gone from being portrayed as monkeys, as uncivilized, as and that's
unwelcomed.
But not just unwelcomed, literally subhuman. You know, and like that was a huge part of the campaign that allowed, you know, the famine to continue unchecked, that which was, you know, a form of ethnic cleansing, really. So there was a lot going on there, but like before, like some of the quotes, when you go back into the old lore and the old letters and newspaper articles and all the cartoons and, you know, all of that. So like, it's like, I feel that it's kind of like my mission in life, that I have to actually like be as fucking loud and as sweary, and you know, we were kept quiet for so long, we were put down for so long, and this actually loops back to the guilt, where like we got to a point where we were ashamed of our own language, and that's the real, you know, I'm going to say that wrong, coup de grace.
It's French.
Okay.
Coup de Gracie. I know a lot of people by saying coup de Gracie. I know it's incorrect, but so coup de Gracie.
But you know, that's that thing where they've got you. You know, when a culture is policing each other, and we see it as well with women. Actually, women do it all the time, where we're so conditioned to be good that we will destroy other women for stepping out of line. And some of that is fear, and some of it is jealousy. Like, you know, if one of us is living so restricted, that how fucking dare she get to live unrestricted and to live free. So there's a big element of that. But you see it in colonially traumatized races as well, where literally we still do police each other, where it's embarrassing to speak Irish. I still have it.
Yeah.
And it's something that I literally have to fucking climb over, you know, to speak Irish in public. I feel, even when we were out in Ring is the Waterford Gaeltacht area.
Yeah.
And we were passing through for the site visit, and going into a shop there, I walked in and I was like, oh, I could use my Irish here. And then I was just instantly mortified. And that has no logical place in my head. None. I honestly never got that in my house, in my family. I would come from quite a nationalist family, but that has seeped into me. That shame has seeped into me from the culture. That shame of, you know, being interested in things that were not good enough or not right, or we're going to get you in fucking trouble, ancestrally speaking. You know, if you were speaking Irish, I mean, even beyond the Rising and the Revolution and the Republic and all the rest of it, even beyond that, you had parents beating the Irish out of their children, parents who only spoke Irish, beating it out of their children because they had this idea that they would never get ahead unless they spoke English, that English was better, you know, English was intrinsically better, and that Irish was uncultured or savage or uncouth. And they literally bet it out of their own children. And that's within my lifetime.
Yeah.
You know? And the Gaeltacht areas are getting smaller and smaller, and that's all happening, and that's all a part of it. But we're not talking about that. We're not looking back to the lore. We're not looking back to the folklore. We're not looking back to I mean, me and you are obviously, but generally as a culture, we're just ignoring all that.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got two things now. I'm just going to touch back to like the responses, because your involvement is important to us as well. So this one is spirituality. So remind me about that, spirituality and language. And this is then like the guilt over like the guilt on language following from you. So Helen has actually responded with some of the education from England, which is great to see. What I was taught in grammar school was frankly spotty at best. Basically, we learned that Cromwell was awful. True. And there was a thing
confirm.
There was a thing called the Pale, and then it goes all fuzzy. Again, my mum taught me a hell of a lot more. So again, additional props to your man. It sounds like an awesome person. I'd love to meet her and buy her a cup of tea or a pint sometime. So yeah, Cromwell was an asshole. We could do an entire session on that. Maybe we should. And we did here again. Side note, just took language and how it pertains to. Oh yeah, just look at language and how it pertains to gender. Obviously, a bugbear of mine, and how hard it is to break out of it in that regard. Yes, that is a very, very important one. So I'm going to cross this one again. So I'm going to look back to Pamela's one first.
You need to uncross one of those so you can have a drink.
Well, I have crossed.
Amateur.
I've crossed Pinky's ways. What does that mean?
Too much syphilis. No sex for you.
Okay, so spirituality and language. I can agree with you on that as well. Like, given that language can have defined thoughts, and we're dealing with, ancient deity, we're dealing with original Irish deity, pre-oppression, pre-colonialism, pre the first and second kind of changes, or invasions, or conversions for Christianity. So we can talk about that again. But yeah, when we're dealing with an Irish spirituality, we're dealing with a root spirituality. Being able to kind of alter your mindset to the language that is inherently connected to that deity or divinity in its natural, organic form. Now, absolutely, divinity and deity, from my perspective, evolves with the times. The stories change. They'll take a language of discussion in whatever language they'll have it. But being able to go to a root language, being able to go to the older kind of stuff, to me, has a stronger impact. And it's not that it's better. It's just that it's shown that bit of a tip of the hat. It's that kind of I'll meet you where you are instead of expecting you to translate to my language where I am. So that's my thoughts on that one, Pam. And I try and do as much as Scéalaí beg me to coint the all at her, which is as much Irish when I'm talking to father of many. It's translation or Dagda. What was the second one?
Oh, I wasn't keeping track.
Guilt around use of language. Yes, and guilt around use of language. It's even now, Ireland is lauded as this great kind of place for setting up low corporation taxes. Yeah, that's why we have a lot of it here. One of the biggest things as I was growing up as well is the fact that we're a highly educated English speaking workforce. That was it's right there. The fact that we don't have a different language to a major language spoken throughout the rest of the world, makes Ireland a much more attractive prospect. So, as you're saying that, parents literally beating it out of their children, or even now, as I was growing up, parents not investing a lot of push in the use of the Irish language at home.
What's the point? It's never going to be used.
Yeah, it's literally, you could do your leaving cert in Irish and get a couple of extra points, but when are you going to use it after that? Which is very, very sad. And I have a lot of regret. The regret is upon me for not, having really had the vision.
Regret it.
We'll have to figure that Or well, Tobron, or the sadness is upon me.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing.
For not having the tongue and the hair and the language of Ireland as fluently as I really would love to. What was this one? Can you remember what was it?
I can't even remember what mine were.
Yes, gendered language. Thank you very much, Helen. Yeah, the language as a structure, defining your thought processes. Even Oswald, there are masculine and feminine terms, like, and yeah, again, a key, his and hers.
Oh no, yeah, but
so
we don't have gender language the way French.
Like just like French would have the same word, and you have to change. I studied French in school. You'd have to change the word. The word itself is defined as masculine or feminine. But how that applies to an individual, you can still apply a masculine word to an individual. There are some words that you can only use if you're talking about a person who is defined as female. In French.
Oh.
So like that's problematic. But
that's what I'm saying. I don't think we have that.
We have like the terms. But we also have
descriptive terms.
Yeah, descriptive. But we also have the they and them. They and them pronouns are still there. So, a goiv, ye. It's always a great one. So yeah, it really is. And again, how language forms our thoughts. It's crucially important to be even aware of that. So thanks for that one. And Pam, hi. Sad to hear Irish people telling me it's a language that doesn't have a place in our modern society. Yeah, that gets me too.
We're not saying that. Really.
No, we're definitely not saying that. This happens to be the laughter over.
Oh yeah.
But there were twice as many that seemed glad to chat with me and seemed genuinely happy to do so.
But that's where we have to look at, again, that post-colonial trauma that we're not looking at all. So it's not to make excuses for people, because we all have to get over our shit and be better. But that's where that's coming from, like that dismissiveness of Ireland, like that is generations old.
Yeah,
that's hundreds.
But if you think about it, we're also dealing with a survival circumstance, because at the height of the worst of it. Okay, well, there's 800 years of the worst of it, so maybe this may not be the height of the worst of it.
Which part are you talking about?
Exactly.
Which worst of it?
Okay, so there was a lot of very, very difficult times. Cromwell was an asshole. It was one of the words that's attributed to Cromwell. I don't know if that came up in your learning, Ella, is to hell or to Connacht. So with the Cromwellian invasion and the plantation and everything else, Connacht, the west coast of Ireland, is remote, rocky, not the most pasture-friendly land, shall we say? And the term was literally... It was literally, you can go to the rocky arse end of the island, or you can die. And that was an ultimatum. But as we began to come forward, towards the 1900s and the 1916 Rising, there was a period where the war was going on in Europe, and there was a lot of kind of challenges over manpower, and you have this emergent Irish nation kind of causing troubles for the Great British Empire. And so they needed to send over a military force, and they sent over the worst of the worst. They're referred to over here as the Black and Tans, mainly because they were kitted out in whatever spare army fatigues were available, which were predominantly black and tan. And they kind of emptied prisons. They emptied the military barracks of the worst to send them over here to carte blanche put down the Irish. So it wouldn't just be a case of you're not going to get ahead in the world if you speak Irish. It might be a case of you may not fucking survive. And that's how you kind of oppress a culture to the point where they manage themselves. You put enough fear into a collective, then eventually they'll begin to manage each other out of that fear. So yeah, it's problematic around that, and how people would then not able to you're not going to get ahead if you don't speak English. It's more like you're not going to survive. You mark yourself out as different. You mark yourself out as a rebel, and you're invariably asking for a beating. So
actually, if you this is a different thing to my cross fingers, but if you've never seen a film called The Wind That Shakes the Barley, go and get it. And you might want to buy a copy actually. What's his face?
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy's in it, and I don't remember who else.
Couple of lads.
Loads of them.
Couple of Irish lads, like. Should be grand, like.
What's women in it?
And women. That's like okay.
Gendered terms.
That's fair. Folk.
Irish folk. It's actually a film that I put as, so was it last time you were talking? No, I don't know when it was. You were talking about no, it was at the Moot actually. You were talking. I don't even fucking know.
What was it?
He talks a lot.
Fair. Fair.
And I get the times and dates mixed up, but I remember the stories.
Tell me the story and I'll tell again.
So you were talking about, and it's something that you regularly kind of talk about, where you have a kind of a measure for people, and I think you were talking about it on the basis of your Facebook, where, if I wouldn't sit down and buy you a pint, then I don't really want you on my Facebook. But my measure,
No, it was actually when we went out for the road trip with Bianna for the last site visit, and I do say it often, and it's more than just I wouldn't buy you a pint. If I would buy you a pint and not expect you to get me one back, as in, have no reservations, you'll get your round in or whatever. Like if I have unequivocal, no hesitations, put my hand in the pocket, buy you a pint, not expect that back, in real life, then, that's one of those things that I think to be within my personal realm of virtual space. If I wouldn't do that in real life, then, do I really rank that for moving within like inner circles of my circumstance? But your benchmark, your guideline.
My guideline is
have you addressed your colonial trauma?
That too, yeah. You can't always ask somebody that straight out though. But a good indicator of it is if somebody has watched the film The Wind That Shakes the Barley and we're not moved by it. So it's not that everybody has to have watched it, but if you watch that and we're not moved by it and, didn't understand it, then we can't be friends. Sorry, not ever. I'll let anybody on my Facebook, that's fine. But, you're not going to get into my house, okay? Whatever. So.
Sudden spike in sales when they shakes the barley.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where like it expresses stories that I heard from my own grandparents, my grandmother particularly, of like remembering being like thrown into haystacks to hide her from the tans, it's literally still in living memory. Okay, my grandmother's dead now, so maybe not in living memory, but those kind of it's just passing out of living memory. So like it's very real, it's very raw for people. I have a different point on the West, which totally changed the topic. Well, not really, but a little bit.
I think we're kind of cool. And sure, Helen and Pam will let us know if they want to have more particular thing. I'm just aware as well that we've come up to like 10 o'clock. I've opened the second beverage. I'm happy to carry on for that. But stay if you don't want to. You're welcome to our company for as long as you want to carry on. Plus, this is kind of what we're like all the time. We kind of sit and have the chats. And that's why this is a really great medium in which to kind of experience this. So, yeah, what was your second next one?
I might have another half an hour maybe because I'm quite tired.
I know. Okay, we'll go over there.
It just occurred to me.
Helen has homemade meat.
Yeah, but we don't have homemade meat.
We're working on it.
How are we working on it?
I have a beehive down the back now. Accidental beehive.
It's an old dog carrier that bees have nested in.
Yeah.
It doesn't count as a beehive.
It's an accidental beehive. All I need to do is get one of those hive things and then get them to move house and then
I'm having my girl moments just every time he talks about the bees.
I'm not allergic to bees. I'm sure I'll be fine.
That you know of.
Come to Bristol. I make it 8 times a year. Okay. We've been invited to Bristol.
Deadly. And bonus Ben. Helensburgh.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I remember his face and I remember chats, and he's a gamer.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember his name. Sorry.
It's all right.
But we can play games and have stuff as well. Play games.
Yeah, the West. It occurred to me that, as you were saying, like the Hellers Connacht, the lore flashed up in my head where the Firbolg were banished or, took over Connacht.
No.
Yeah. Okay, correct me.
The Tuatha came into Connacht and they set up in Connacht.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when the Moitura Part 1 went down against the Firbolg and they were beaten, I don't think they were sent to Connacht. Like there was a reproportion of the land and a rearrangement of it.
They took Connacht.
It was not Munster.
Oh, they took Connacht.
I'll have to check.
I believe you did.
Okay.
You just corrected me incorrectly.
I just disagreed with you.
Okay.
I'm not incorrect until I'm incorrect. Again, this is what we're like. So, yes, Connacht, Firbolg.
I could be wrong. The Firbolg could have come into Munster, but I don't think that's the case. That they settled in Munster. Who the fuck would settle in Munster? Come on.
You say this to an O'Sullivan.
We're in Munster also. We have literally settled in Munster.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is me too. So, yeah, the Firbolg had that whole Connacht thing. Possibly Munster, definitely Connacht. There was also when the 1798 Rising happened, the French came over and were going to lend a hand against the English. And a general called Henri, name's gone, landed in Mayo, I think, and declared a Republic of Connacht. There's actually a constitution of the Republic of Connacht and the declaration when he landed.
Okay.
I think they left fairly soon after that. The French didn't really help with, well, they helped a bit, but
it's like the Earls.
There was also, that was the other one where, like, when all the Anglo-Norman stuff was happening all over the country, like Connacht was still the stronghold for that.
So is this because of your love affair with Connacht and the fact that Rathcrogan is there?
I'm talking about the lore. I'm talking about the lore in...
And the fact that Cork is the rebel county specifically because Cork held out against the invasion. As well. Is that the only reference you've got for Cork? Because I've just done 4 for Connacht. Carry on.
Just saying.
Just saying.
And now that you've brought up Rathcrogan, it is probably the oldest royal site, and the others were all modelled off it, including Tara.
That's exactly what we're like.
So, I'm using this as an example, not to prove that Connacht is the best, because it is, and it doesn't need proving. Besides that, I'm using it as an example where we can actually, when you have the lore in your head, you might have to go and check the references in books because now you're doubting yourself whether the fucking Firbolg ended up in Connacht or in Munster. But when you have a broad understanding of the lore, like those are very different areas of Irish history that I just touched on. And different
centuries in the
different centuries, different contexts, the spirituality, the revolution, the rebellions, all the rest of it. You start to see the patterns, and that's what the lore can actually give to us. It's not like one direct source that is right or wrong. It's looking at the whole lot of it, knowing the whole lot, which is big and it's quite overwhelming and it's definitely a lifetime's work. But immersing yourself in the culture helps. Watching The Wind That Shakes the Barley, that helps. Listening to the Blind Boy podcast, talking to actual Irish people, it all helps because all these tiny little bits seep in, and you end up with this pattern in your head that's not a specific story or a specific fact or, you know, anything like that. It's the big picture stuff. It's the essence of it. It's the feel of it. So, like, from those instances, I'm wondering, was there, like, even there was another one actually. There was in was it 17 or 1800, way after the Flight of the Earls. Anyway, there was an inauguration in Tusk, a Gaelic kingship inauguration. Right now, this is way after this should have been happening. So it was recorded as a dramatic reenactment, but it was one of the O'Connors who were the traditional kings of Connacht. And maybe that's where your Connacht Munster confusion is happening.
Because of my bloodlines. I'm Conor O'Connor too.
So, yeah, so there was an actual Gaelic kingship inauguration there, which was done in the old pagan fashion. And it goes to show you, like, that, you know, you're just scratching the surface, really. And you're picking up these threads and you're trying to kind of see what pattern they make.
So would it be fair to say that all of these different aspects, all these different kind of threads of knowledge, threads of lore, threads of history, when you immerse yourself enough, when you kind of expose yourself to enough of this, you finally begin to weave the big tapestry that is Irish life and Irish culture. Maybe.
I don't know if you're weaving it or watching it being woven.
Are you the weaver or are you the observer of the weaving?
Depends on the person, I suppose.
It does indeed. And that is another layer of conversation we can definitely have.
I've probably added a bit to the rest in my time.
Right. So what I'd probably like to do, given that it's 10 past the hour of 10, I'm going to just round off our stuff and I'll finish up the recording. But happy to stay here and keep on chatting with you, Pam and Helen, and whoever, if you want to kind of just carry on. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Thankfully, no technical issues this time. We're going to kind of carry on doing these on a regular basis, hopefully without any scheduling conflicts next time. Thanks very much for Laura for joining me again and adding kind of layers and layers to our tapestry of it. A big part of what we do is supported by our community, supported by our patrons. So thank you very much for the patrons, because it's your kind of backing us that allows us to kind of make sure that we're producing these kind of things.
Give your Patreon address.
Give your Patreon address.
No, yours.
Yours first.
Patreon.com/Dagda. Dagda.
That's mine. That's not yours.
Mine is just my name. It's fine.
Patreon.com/Lora O Brien. So if you can support us, I will be kind of passing on this recording as well, because there's a lot of value here. We want to make sure that we're exposing people wherever possible. So thank you very much for your time, and catch you next time.
Slán.